owns more gold than any man in the world. And he is
He's going to explain to us about what a troy ounce is.
He's senior pastor of Antioch Bible Church near Seattle, Washington. He was born in Alabama in the era of segregation. He is a former middle linebacker for the Seattle Seahawks, Dallas Cowboys, and San Diego Chargers. He served more than 2 decades training young adults and young people to be on the offensive for Jesus Christ, and he joins us now. Ken, good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm Tim with Ed. Are you in Seattle today or near Seattle?
I am in Seattle today, yes.
What's your church?
Antioch Bible Church?
Yeah, how long you been there?
Oh, my goodness. I started the church going on 29 years ago.
Well, wow, almost 30 years. Congratulations.
Yeah, now, were you still playing football then?
No, I was retired when I started the church. I was working at another church as a youth pastor for 7 years, and at half that time I was still involved.
Well, I'm just curious. I mean, you played for the Seahawks, you played for the Chargers and the Cowboys, but you grew up in Alabama.
Yeah.
Why didn't you come home to Alabama after your football career was over?
Well, it was not my decision. You know, it's kind of like God had some plans, and he had started a ministry up here. And I wanted to get back to Alabama every chance I got. And finally I had to surrender playing football. Like I surrendered playing in the ministry. And ended up that God had opened up so many doors in Seattle area that I ended up staying and met my wife and have a family here now.
Well, so what is Seattle like spiritually speaking? Every community, I guess, kind of has a spiritual atmosphere. I've always heard that that part of the country is the least Christian in terms of church attendance and those kind of things by which it's oftentimes measured. What's it like there?
Yeah, when it comes to spiritual things, Seattle is very dark. One of the most liberal areas outside of Oregon, I believe. In the Northwest and in the United States. So it's a great place to be if you want to do a ministry. You never run out of people, see.
Well, that's true. Dr. Ken Hutcherson of the Antioch Baptist Church in Redmond, Washington is joining us.
Antioch Bible guy. You guys keep trying to make me Baptist.
You know what? You're right. This was I was reading from the Christian Post article, and under your picture they had Antioch Baptist Church.
Oh yeah, everyone tried to make me Baptist. But, I try to run from that Southern Baptist.
I understand. Antioch Bible Church. Hey, I want to talk to you. Several things I want to discuss with you. Your column you wrote recently, but have you seen this movie 42 about Jackie Robinson?
No, I haven't. I'm planning on seeing it. I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's funny you mentioned that. Yesterday, after church, we always have people over. And we had a bunch of folks over. My mother was here. And some of the guys was getting ready to go see the movie, and they asked my mom if she was going to go see the movie. And she made a very interesting comment because we grew up in the South during this time.
Right.
And she says, no, I'm not going to see the movie. I lived it. Just like the movie The Hope. I don't know if you guys remember the movie The Hope.
What was it about?
It was about blacks working for whites in the South.
Oh, The Help.
The Help, yeah.
I did see that.
I saw that too, yeah.
In fact,
says, I was one of those ladies, so I'm not going to see the movie.
In fact, I have a little story to tell about that movie, The Help. My wife and I went to see it. My wife hardly ever goes to the movies with me. I usually have to drag someone along or I go by myself. But I talked her into that because someone had told me, you got to go see it. It's funny. It's like, oh, brother, where art thou? It's a funny movie. You like. So my wife says, okay, I'll go see it. It wasn't a comedy. It had some funny scenes in it, but it was incredibly sad. And my wife, who grew up in the South as well, in Mississippi, she said that is sad. And it just, but you know what, you gotta, we were talking about this in the first hour about Jackie Robinson. You've got to have some sort of way to glimpse what life was like for blacks under Jim Crow and those kinds of situations. And movies are a powerful way of communicating that.
Oh, movies can communicate good, and it can communicate bad.
Yeah.
It can communicate morals, and it can communicate a lack of morals. It has a great deal of influence on society. And we as Christians need to be more involved on what type of movies is coming out of Hollywood.
So, Ken, when did you grow up in Alabama? What years?
I was born in '52, and I grew up during the '50s and '60s there. Very difficult time. Remember the Freedom Riders. One of the buses was turned over in my hometown, Anniston, and burned there when I was a little boy. I remember the first year of integration in the state of Alabama. My mother wouldn't let me go the first year because she knew I was going to get in a whole bunch of trouble. So I couldn't go to an integrated school until my second year, and I was a freshman in high school at that time.
So you're, how did you process that in your life? And I know you're probably speaking for a lot of Black Americans especially who grew up in the South. Although Ed and I were talking, racial problems were Chicago, Detroit, Boston, New York. I mean, it isn't like it was just to the. The South got the reputation, well deserved,
right,
for the slavery and then the treatment of Black Americans up until the changes that were made in recent decades. But I'm just curious, how do you process that? Because you and I are Christian brothers. We're talking today. We're both Southerners, and we're talking about issues. Occasionally, we might talk about racial issues, but most of the issues you and I are talking about are Christian issues that face our country. But how did you get past the way you saw, your family treated, your people of Black skin during that era? How did you get past that?
I was one of the most prejudiced people you would ever meet in your life, guys.
When
I was growing up.
Okay.
Because I saw how African Americans treated. I saw the back door. I saw the sitting in the back of the bus. I saw going to restaurants and not being able to go through the front door and not able to sit at the counter. So I had no love for whites when I was growing up. I saw how my mom was treated by the family she worked for. I saw how my grandfather was treated as just a low nothing. I mean, he was just a hard core worker, and you kept your mouth shut. And those things, as a young Black person coming up, with seeing some of the changes that was going on with Martin Luther King and those things, I was radical. And the only reason I went out for football, I was a better baseball player than I was a football player. I had a tryout for the St. Louis Cardinals when I was 15 years old, and my mother wouldn't let me go. And so I started playing football because I could hurt white people legally. And that was my motivation for playing football. And it wasn't until my senior year in high school, guys, that I became a Christian and had to override that view of prejudice. And it was a single thought that God had put in my mind after I accepted Christ, and that was, I died for everyone. I died for you. I died for whites. I died for anyone on this earth. And if I died for everyone, who are you to have the right to hate anyone? And that was a phenomenal revelation that I had to face. And I did not want to give up my prejudice, but my Christianity overrode my Blackness, and that is still today, guys. My Christianity overrides every aspect. It overrides my Blackness, overrides my maleness, it overrides every aspect of my life. And that's because I am completely sold out to Jesus Christ.
And I was going to say, that's the power of Christ. I mean, because we're talking about natural animosities. My mom has since gone to be with the Lord, but she was Greek. She grew up in Greece, and the biggest insult you could call a Greek was to call him a Turk, because the Turks controlled Greece for 500 years or something like that.
Came in and took over,
Savagely treated the Greeks. And so that animosity exists even today, hundreds of years later. And so you're talking about generational hatreds and animosities, and it takes the power of Christ, like you said, you put it in a very good way, to override that human nature and that human experience and put a genuine love in your heart for your enemy.
Absolutely. It is for God to change you so much that your enemy ceases to be your enemy, even though your enemy hadn't changed.
We're talking to Dr. Ken Hutcherson from Seattle area. And what's your website, Ken?
It is the Hutch way, one that people can keep up with me is Hutch Post, HUTCHPOST.org, HutchPost.org. If they go to HutchPost.com, they're going to get the Hutchinson, Kansas newspaper. That's not me.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's HUTCHPOST.org?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, just one other final thought on that. Okay, so you what age were you when you received Christ into your life?
I was 16.
16. But was this in a black church?
Oh, no. It was in my high school assembly.
Your high school assembly?
High school assembly, yeah. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Somebody came and shared the gospel?
Campus Crusade for Christ came.
Campus Crusade for Christ
our
came.
high school. And it was, I never forget, I'm sitting there, man, and I am angry as all get out. And it was when I was 5 years old, I had heard a testimony about Roy Robertson and Dale Evans as a little boy. And 11 years later, I accepted Christ because of that testimony of Roy and Dale and this guy in the high school assembly could not deny it, that God was real. And almost 20 years later, I got to say hello to Roy Rogers and tell him that I was a young kid. He says, I don't know why God took our daughter, and because she had died when she was about 3. And I said, I don't know if you can believe this, sir, but I thank God that your daughter was taken because it saved my life.
Mm.
Wow.
He
man.
started crying. It was an amazing union and time that we had together there in California.
So just to review here, God took an angry young 16-year-old boy in high school who wanted to hurt white people for what he had seen white people do to his family and his friends in the South in Alabama. Some guy comes to your high school assembly from Campus Crusade for Christ, tells you about Jesus Christ and how he can change your life. You accept the Lord into your life, and that makes a radical change.
A radical change. I went home. I knew how to make all A's. I was an honor roll student. I knew how to be the best football player. I was starting on the football team, and I knew that what the coach said, you better do, and you better keep it to the playbook. If I wanted to start on the team, I had to be better than anyone else. So once I accepted Christ in that high school assembly guy, I went home, picked up a Bible, and said, God, you're now my head coach. The Bible is now my playbook, and you run the plays the way you wrote it, God. You don't discuss it. Same way you would it to the coach. And I spent the next 4 years averaging about 5 to 8 hours a day studying the scriptures.
Well, that's a modern day Saul to Paul story.
Hey, have you ever written this? Has your life story been written down as in book form?
No, people have been on me for I don't know how long. They've been talking about writing a book about my life. They're talking about doing a movie. But, I'm just so busy doing a lot of things. I just hadn't been able to slow down.
That would make a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, and book.
It is an amazing thing to see the things that I went through. I got beat up by almost 20 guys one night in my freshman year in high school when I first went to that integrated school. We was coming back from the homecoming celebration party the night before the game, and there was 3 of us walking home, and 2 guys looked up and saw the crowd coming at us, and they took off running. But I was going, man, I'm not running from these guys because I didn't know it was that many.
Oh.
And I turned around and walked up to the first 3 and threw the first punch. And, man, they jumped on me, and they kicked me, and they beat me, and I got away somehow. They cracked some ribs. I got down to the black community, and the first place you hit was a pool hall. It emptied. We ran back, ran the guys, passed their cars up to the school, busted windows and everything, and I came back. And I never would tell the coach that I had cracked ribs. I played the whole game that next night, and then after the game, I told the coach I had hurt my ribs in the game, and they took me up to the hospital.
Wow.
Wow, man.
That's how much hatred I had.
Yeah. Dr. Ken Hutcherson is joining us. You can get him online at hutchpost.org, hutchpost.org. Ken is senior pastor of the Antioch Bible Church there near Seattle. Let's switch gears.
You betcha.
Let's switch gears. You wrote an article